Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to this pre-recorded video during this month of Radical Loving. Welcome. I am Rebecca Skeele, Heaven on Earth mentor and wisdom teacher, and the founder of Your Sacred Ambition. And today I have with me my co-facilitator in the work of Sacred Ambition, as well as the co-mentor for our mentorship that we do. And I invited her today to be on this video because we're going to be talking about one of the things we're going to be doing in a day of radical loving. And I want you to meet her and feel her energy and really hear her wisdom and insight. So welcome, Laura Pedro.
Thank you, Rebecca. And Rebecca told me to tell you a little bit about who I am. So I have an organization called Think and Grow CEO, and I work with entrepreneurs and small businesses who are really committed to making a difference in the world. And I'm loving my partnership with Rebecca. Sacred Ambition is an amazing, amazing set of work.
Yes, it is. And Laura is an amazing co-facilitator in that work. So today, what we want to talk about is an aspect of radical loving that I've hinted at in the live Facebook videos, but really have not talked in depth. So we wanted to jump on this video, the Zoom video today, and record some thoughts for you, some sharing that we have. And again, I want to say that these are really just beginnings of dialogues, really hoping that when you watch this video, if there's anything you'd like to share, we hope you jump on, you comment. Laura and I will be, paying attention and love it to be a dialogue. So today, the aspect of radical loving that we want to talk about is writing our new story. I really believe that radical loving is asking us to do that at this time. I don't think it is something that we just do as a good idea. I think we're really being asked to do it. And there's a reason for it. Lots of reasons, and we're going to talk about why, but let me just share my reasons, and I love Laura to share hers. The reason I believe that we're being asked asked to write a new story, first of all, it's really important that we begin to talk about, share in all kinds of situations and settings the new story, that we begin to mobilize the energy toward what we really want to create for ourselves. And Laura and I are looking at the next 20 years, okay? From 2017 to 2037. It's not an overnight thing, is it? And I don't want to talk about just 10 years. I want to talk about 20 years. And because I feel like at this time, unless we begin to write a story from radical loving, we are going to get the story that's already in place. And the story that's already in place, quite honestly, is going to be a huge train wreck. And we all know this. We all know that we're headed for a cliff. And we're headed for a cliff environmentally, economically, culturally, in so many areas, we're headed for a cliff. And if we do not bring forward a new story, because what happens when we write the new story, we share it, we talk about it, is we begin to move with it. And it's not just Laura and I that are going to do this. It's really going to take all of us. What about you, Laura?
Well, I think it's so important, if you think about it, first of all, I want to say it this way. If we aren't the ones that write the new story, who is? And if you think about it, it's so easy for us as people, just one person, us in our own bodies, in our own little heads. It's so easy for us to think that somebody else is going to do it. It's somebody else's authority to do something like this. It's not my job. Nobody asked me to do this. And so that's one piece. That's kind of the weight that would keep us from helping to write the new story. On the other hand, if you look and you really look everywhere, our institutions are not capable of writing a story. Right now, our institutions are not capable of writing a story that's going to work for the future. What's happening already, you can see that the story that's being written is causing such divisiveness, whether it's racial divisiveness, sexual divisiveness, any of the big issues around women and what's okay for us to do and what's not okay for us to do. All of those things are causing us to really lose the freedoms that we have, the ability to operate as a strong democracy. And so I think it's just really, really important that all of us say, wait a minute, I do have the authority to have a voice in writing the new story. Mm-hmm. I actually don't need any more authority than my own declaration.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And one of the things we're going to be doing, and actually Laura and I are going to be facilitating an event on February 18th in Albuquerque, New Mexico, called A Day of Radical Loving. And one of the things we're going to be doing with that group that's going to show up is writing the new story. One of the things we're going to be doing. And I want to say that the group that's gathering there are actually our Sacred Ambition tribe, the group that Laura and I have been nurturing and shepherding and mentoring now for almost 4 years. And the group is growing. And so if you're listening to this and have never heard of this, just want you to say that the group that's going to gather there are incredible, beautiful, heart-focused, sacred ambition leaders, world servers, and visionaries. And we are all going to be moving into sacred action. You know, this is one of the things I want to talk about because I was reflecting on this before our call. This story that I wrote for Sacred Ambition when we kicked it off, it'll be 4 years in August. That story does not work today. And so one of the things that I'm looking at personally in taking us, forward, and all of us are in it. I mean, it's not like I'm the only one doing this. We're all talking about it. We're all got input in it, is that the story has to evolve. And so that's part of why we're doing a Day of Radical Loving, because I feel like this radical loving energy that is coming, that's writing in right now on loving, loving's already been there, right? But there's this radical energy that's coming. And if you've watched any of my live Facebooks, you know what I mean by radicals: far-reaching, impactful, bold, fierce, kind, all in. There's lots of synonyms for that word. So I know personally that this new story has to be written. And so I want to, just echo what Laura said, to say we are the ones that need to do it. And when we start doing it, more people are going to do it. And I really believe people are doing it already, but this is an opportunity to do it. How about you, Laura?
I think something to really keep in mind is that the first step toward making something that you really want to have happen is envisioning it clearly, like having a picture of where you're headed. And so really by participating in writing the story that you want to see unfold over the next 20 years, you have something that is calling to you. It's almost like throwing an anchor into the future and then using it to pull yourself forward so that your actions are strong and really committed. And you have something to gauge against, like, is this decision I'm about to make right now consistent with that future that I want to see 20 years from now?
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So, do we write a new story based on radical loving, on compassion, on acceptance, on inclusion, on kindness, Or do we let the story that's unfolding right now continue, which is based in separation, alienation, cruelty, hate, and greed? You know, what story do we want to be living? What story do we want to be creating for ourselves? So we've come up with, Laura and I kind of want to talk about three questions that we're going to be exploring in depth on a day of radical loving. But today, let's go and explore them. And again, we don't have any answers. We just want to put the questions out there to begin the dialogue, to begin the story making, the story writing, the story creation. And the first question is, you know, when you look back on your life in 20 years, in 2037, you already know it's going to be a time of great change, great chaos, great upheaval, because that's the time we're walking through. And is that upheaval and that change going to come from radical loving? When you look back, are you going to see how we stopped the train wreck? Are you going to see how we avoided going over the cliff? Are you going to see how there's millions of us that got on board in this new story that we want to create?
You know, Rebecca, I want to say, standing out there in 2037 and looking back is where you really will see probably the discomfort and the chaos and the discord in some places that we all had to go through. And it's not that it's going to be perfect in 2037. Things, like you said, things always will change. And, you know, so it's not like there's some utopia out there in 2037, but what we want to see is, what is it that it's our intention that it looks like 20 years from now?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, we're not talking about utopia. Even though I'm a mentor of Heaven on Earth, you know, I'm, let's say, not foolish enough to think that that's really what I mean when I say heaven on earth. I'm really talking about an inner heaven, right? And yet in 2037, I would really love to see more of us living from that inner heaven.
And actually more of us living from all of the qualities that you've talked about as part of radical loving. You know, a world in which there is more compassion. You know, we talked about this earlier, Rebecca, that this is really something that is emerging organically, and we're part of it. We're spokespeople for it. You know, there's if you look back, if anybody watched the Women's March, people spoke about this being a revolution of love. So there's something we know, all of us, maybe more women than men, we know that this is called for. And I loved how you were talking about, really, it is all of these elements of radical loving that you've spoken about are so grounded in the female energies, and they're called forth right now.
Yes, and this is the empowered feminine. This is the fierce feminine. This is the feminine that really is ready to, I love one of the signs that were from the Women's March. One of them said something like, you know, on November 8th, I was a spiritual whatever, and on November 9th, I was an activist. So it's the fierce feminine that's really coming forward to say, okay, we gotta do something here. So the first question is, you know, looking back 20 years, you know, what do you want to see? That's one way of approaching the new story. The second question is, how do you see us doing it together? How do you see us doing it together? Exactly, practically grounded in reality, not pie in the sky. How do you see us doing this together? And it is going to take all of us.
And you know, I loved, Rebecca, the part of how you started this was by inviting a dialogue. around this. And that's part of what is going to happen and need to happen to have all of us work together to create the new story together. Lots and lots of dialogue. So that, that's part of the pathway. But I think what I hear when we ask that question about how do you see us creating this together, it includes things like what will be happening politically, what will be happening on the education front, what would be happening everywhere you can see a part of us, whether it's government or education or healthcare or all of the aspects that have to work together. What would be moving in those areas? And because, as you said, it's going to take all of us to make this happen.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then the third aspect of this, again, this is our first beginnings, because we are in the process of following the energy of this, and what is your part in this? It's really important that you know your part. And that you go into action, whatever is your part, that you move into action. The part that you play is as important as anyone's. I love what Laura said earlier. If your voice is important, and I hope you know this by now, because there's been so many instances over the past several years where a small group of people have really made a radical difference. So what is the part you're going to play? And that's where the radical loving comes in for me. It's like, I want to come from a radical loving place. I want to come from that bold, fierce, kind place, that compassion place, that open-hearted place. That's what's important to me. And then from there, I take my actions, whatever it is, in my family, how I show up, in my communities, and politically in my country, or wherever you are called. There is so much want for all of us right now. So the third question is, what's my part in this?
And I invite you, when you look at that, to see if you look at what you've done, if you go through and you answer the first two questions, you started with, what do I really want? What is the future that I can place myself in and be part of building? And then the second one, you kind of looked a little bigger, and you looked at all the parts that are needed. And then this one, you're looking at yourself and what is your part in it. And I invite you to look from your love. Look from your heart. Look from that thing that you love to do, whatever that is, the things that you're really good at, or things that you are pretty good at and you want to get a lot better at because you know that that's a huge contribution that you would love to make. Mm-hmm. So it's really bringing together what the world needs and what you love and you have energy for, and that's the place to begin to put the answer to the question together and what's my part in it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. That's that sacred calling, sacred ambition part that Laura and I talk a lot about and teach and mentor. And yet I also want to add, though, to that I think radical loving is also calling us to do things that we haven't done before. I really think it is calling us into the new, maybe the uncomfortable. I'll just talk about myself. I'll raise my hand here. I've paid attention to politics all my life. I know what's going on. Yet I've really never been an activist. I have been more of a inspiration, bringing forth the energy so others could partake and say, yeah, let's do this, or champion individuals. Let's say that's my work. I've really never moved into activism before, and that's uncomfortable for me. Just going to say that it is. It's uncomfortable in a lot of ways for me. And yet I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm going to write a new story about what activism is for me and be that and do that, you know? And so I think there's going to be a lot of that going on. A lot of these old stories, and when I say old story, they've served us, you know, as best they can, and yet they haven't, have they? Yeah.
I love that you said that. I really love that you said it, Rebecca. I think the thought, I have this image of the word coasting and then a circle around it and a slash through it. There's no coasting.
No coasting. No. No coasting. No passive bystanders. It's like the train has left the station and we need to do something about this.
Yeah.
You know, it's not still at the station. So yeah, no coasters. So again, we hope you take these 3 questions and begin writing your story. Now is a good time. Month of Radical Loving. We are in, we are in week 3 of this month of Radical Loving. There's 2 more weeks that I'm going to be bringing forth different teachings, ideas, whatever. And also, if you would love to come join us, we'd love to have you. February 18th in a Day of Radical Loving in Albuquerque, New Mexico. There will be a link somewhere around this video of the page that you can go to read more about what to expect. And come join us. You know, doing this in a group, especially this group, is going to be powerful. It is going to be impactful. It is going to be a breakthrough. It's going to be far-reaching, I promise. So,
sorry, I just wanted to say you couldn't find a community, a better community of co-creators with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have anything else. Laura, do you have any?
Nope, I sure don't.
Well, I want to thank you for being on this Zoom today with us. We'll have you back. And so goodbye from Laura and I. Blessings.